We now move into page 4 of the residential listing contract. This section may appear administrative at first glance, but it is one of the most litigation-prone areas in Arizona real estate transactions. Disputes over refrigerators, solar systems, spas, and smart devices are far more common than most licensees expect. Additionally, this page transitions into the formal agency language that governs the broker's representation during the listing term. Together, these provisions protect the owner, the buyer, and your license. Let's break this down carefully and practically for Phoenix Metro transactions. Additional existing personal property, avoiding closing day disputes. This section allows the owner to specify personal property that may be included in the sale. These are items not automatically considered fixtures. Examples include refrigerators, washers and dryers, above-ground spas, other movable items. In Arizona, the difference between fixtures and personal property matters significantly. A fixture is generally attached to the property and intended to remain. Personal property is movable. The listing stage is where clarity begins. If it is not clearly identified here, disputes may arise later in the purchase contract. Valley example. A Mesa seller includes the kitchen refrigerator during marketing, but removes it before closing because it was not clearly documented. The buyer believes it was included. The listing agreement can help establish original intent and avoid claims of misrepresentation. The description line next to each item is critical. For example, Samsung stainless steel refrigerator, model XYZ, located in kitchen. This level of specificity prevents substitution or confusion. Discussion. Question. Why is it important to describe personal property in detail rather than simply checking a box? Answer. Because specificity prevents disputes, substitution, and misunderstandings about which items are included. Additional personal property section, custom scenarios. This blank section allows inclusion of items unique to the property, such as backyard pergola, custom garage shelving, patio furniture, wall-mounted televisions. Arizona buyers often assume certain items stay because they appear permanent. The listing agreement provides clarity before negotiations begin. Leased or not owned items, one of the most critical disclosure areas in Arizona. This section requires disclosure of leased or lien items such as solar systems, alarm systems, propane tanks, water softeners. In today's Phoenix metro market, solar systems are extremely common. The most common mistake licensees make is failing to determine whether solar is owned or leased at the listing stage. If leased, the buyer must qualify to assume the lease. This can affect underwriting and timeline. Real-life scenario. A Gilbert home under contract reveals leased solar only after inspection. The buyer's lender requires additional documentation. Closing is delayed 2 weeks. This could have been prevented with early disclosure. Under AAC R428-1101, licensees must disclose material facts. Leased equipment affecting financial obligations qualifies as material. Discussion. Question. Why must leased solar be disclosed before a purchase contract is written? Answer. Because it affects buyer qualification, debt-to-income ratios, and assumption agreements. It materially impacts the transaction. Fixtures. Not included. Preventing surprise removal. This section allows the owner to specify fixtures that will not convey. Common examples include decorative chandeliers, custom mirrors, antique wall sconces, family heirloom light fixtures. If a fixture is excluded, it must be clearly stated. Otherwise, buyers may reasonably assume it conveys. Example: a Scottsdale seller removes a custom dining room chandelier after contract acceptance. The buyer files a demand for replacement. If exclusion was not disclosed in the listing, conflict escalates. Discussion. Question. Why should excluded fixtures be disclosed in MLS remarks and not just in the listing agreement? Answer. because marketing transparency prevents buyer reliance on inaccurate assumptions. Agency section, formalizing representation. During the listing term, we now transition into the agency provisions of the listing agreement. This section confirms that the listing broker represents the owner during the term of the agreement, except in limited representation scenarios previously discussed. The fiduciary duties owed to the owner include loyalty, obedience, disclosure, confidentiality, accounting. These duties are reinforced by AAC R4 28-1101 and ADRI Regulatory Authority. Showing the property, not a conflict. The agreement clarifies that showing the property to prospective buyers does not create a conflict of interest. In practice, some sellers misunderstand this and assume that showing the property to buyers affiliated with the brokerage is improper. The agreement clarifies that showing is part of broker duties. Conduct of brokers, duties to all parties. Regardless of whom the broker represents, Arizona law requires fair treatment of all parties, written disclosure of known material, adverse facts. Disclosure if a party may be unable to perform. This applies even when the broker does not represent the other side. For example, if a buyer appears financially unstable and unlikely to perform, disclosure obligations may arise. Under Hill v. Jones, failure to disclose material defects can result in liability. Discussion. Question. If a listing agent learns that a buyer's financing appears questionable, must this be disclosed to the seller? Answer. Yes, if it materially affects the likelihood of performance. Limited representation. Reminder. Within listing agreement. This section reiterates that limited representation may occur if the brokerage procures the buyer. It reinforces, written consent is required. Neither party may be favored. Certain information cannot be disclosed. It also clearly states what the broker cannot disclose under limited representation, including recommended negotiation terms. This is extremely important in competitive markets like Chandler or Gilbert, where in-house buyers are common. Discussion. Question. Why can a broker not recommend specific counteroffer pricing to one party under limited representation? Answer. Because doing so would favor one party and violate neutrality requirements inherent in limited representation. Competing owners. Understanding market reality. The agreement clarifies that the broker may represent other sellers with similar properties and buyers pursuing similar homes. In the metropolitan Phoenix area, large brokerages like Realty One Group routinely represent multiple sellers within the same subdivision. This clause prevents claims that the broker should not list competing properties. Example: a listing in Power Ranch competes with 3 other Realty One Group listings. The owner cannot claim conflict simply because the brokerage represents other sellers. Discussion. Question. Why is it important that the owner consent to the brokerage representing other similar properties? Answer. Because it prevents later claims of divided loyalty when similar listings exist within the brokerage. Bringing this section together. This page accomplishes 3 major goals. It clarifies what conveys and what does not. It protects against leased equipment. Surprises. It reinforces agency duties and limitations. In Arizona, many lawsuits stem not from price disputes, but from removed fixtures, undisclosed leased items, misunderstood agency roles. Clear explanation at the listing stage prevents costly disputes later.